Donald Trump has gone missing from any and all public events. The last time he held a public event was about 6 days ago. He has no public events on his calendar today. The last time that he was seen was around the time he was heading for his purported annual physical at Walter Reed, which then resulted in that very suspicious report with all of those red flags being released. If you look at his schedule today, the first thing he's doing today purportedly is at 2 p.m. and it's all closed to the press, closed to the press. The press has been kicked out of everything. This is raising a lot more red flags during a time where there needs to be actual leadership. You know, Donald Trump apparently did a phone call to CNBC yesterday and to some other media outlets where he said that he was bored with the negotiations in Iran and he doesn't care that there are no discussions actively taking place because he says it's very boring, but he also says we're moving closer to a deal, but he's very bored. If you look at the Iran media today, they're talking about how the United States and Iran are not currently exchanging any messages, that all negotiations have totally broken down, of course, contradicting Donald Trump for saying, yeah, you know, even though I'm bored, we're still moving along these discussions quite rapidly. Also, in Donald Trump's silence, we're now also hearing from Israeli media contradicting the report from Axios, Barak Ravid, who claimed that Donald Trump called up Netanyahu yesterday and started screaming at him and said, F you, Netanyahu, and, you know, everybody hates you, and you're the reason that our negotiations are falling apart. And as I said, I don't think Donald Trump would ever say that to Netanyahu. I mean, Donald Trump's the guy who pushes in the chair for Netanyahu. He's a Netanyahu bootlicker in my view. And I said, that's probably just Donald Trump going to Barak Ravid at Axios, who kind of is Donald Trump's stenographer, so Trump can kind of seem like he's being tough with Israel when he's absolutely not. And while Israel continues to invade Lebanon, which makes any possibility of a peace deal with Iran basically impossible. So a source in the Israeli prime minister's team is telling Israeli Channel 12 News that Donald Trump didn't say any of the things that Barak Ravid said. It said, yeah, the call was tense and focused on both leaders' complaints, but nothing that Donald Trump claimed was said to Barak Ravid was actually, said. And, again, while Donald Trump is gone missing as he has nothing on his calendar, the deranged posts still continue. Again, he's posting that Canada should be the 51st state, which then triggered the conservative premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, to post, I can't believe I have to say this again. Canada will never be the 51st state. Canada's not for sale. While I'm at it, here's the truth. In April, Ontario created 680% more jobs than the U.S. adjusted for population. That's how we protect Ontario. And just increasingly, we're seeing the American people so damn fed up with this Trump regime. We're in a jobs recession. We got new job numbers this morning. There's more open jobs than we've ever seen in recent history. We know inflation is surging. People can't afford anything. And what does Donald Trump do? Well, Donald Trump decides to take the director of federal housing finance and the chairman of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that trust fund guy who was the person who weaponized Fannie and Freddie and the Federal Housing and Finance Agency to go after all of Donald Trump's political enemies. And then he would say, oh, they didn't pay their mortgage or they lied on their mortgage application. That's the guy. He has no experience at all in the intelligence community. Yet Donald Trump just appointed him to replace Tulsi Gabbard after she was forced out and fired, or she resigned, but she was forced out. And this guy has no intelligence experience, yet he's going to be the director of national intelligence during this critical point in time. Does Donald Trump go out there and make a statement or talk publicly about it? No, because Donald Trump is MIA. He's nowhere to be found. Also, while Donald Trump is apparently in hiding from the media, from the press, we're also seeing that the Trump regime is escalating its attacks on Oman. Yeah, Oman, which is neutral. They served as the mediator and actually got a great deal between the United States and Iran back in late February. Then once there was a deal reached, that's when Donald Trump and Netanyahu invaded Iran and got us into this mess. Remember, the Omani foreign minister went on the media that late February Friday and said, look, we got a deal. The deal's done. And then that's what Donald Trump and Netanyahu invade. Well, now the U.S. is threatening to attack Oman, threatening to impose sanctions on Oman because Oman is located right near Iran in terms of the Strait of Hormuz, and the Strait of Hormuz goes right in between Oman and Iran. And so they're working together in terms of asserting control over the Strait of Hormuz and collecting a toll. So now Oman is under attack by the United States. And again, while Donald Trump is apparently bored as a result of these negotiations and as he's hiding from the media, we're also seeing Iran's wartime headquarters declaring the resumption of hostilities inevitable against the United States. They said, look, Iran's not going to surrender. The message that they just posted is you're not going to achieve in negotiations that which you didn't achieve in battle. And if you're prepared for war, we're prepared for war. And we have our missiles and drones trained on all of our neighbors. And as you've seen when you've engaged in these attacks in the Strait of Hormuz over the past week or so, and you've attacked this location and that location, we responded immediately. We immediately targeted Kuwait and injured 5 U.S. service members. That's still being covered up by CENTCOM and the United States, of course. They hit a Kuwaiti airbase. And then when you struck other targets, we hit a area in northern Iraq. We now know, publicly, we know that a U.S. soldier and a U.K. soldier were killed. The United States and the UK claim that they were killed in a training exercise that just happened to be in the same area that Iran targeted after the US targeted Iran. They want us to believe that the same way they want us to believe that the 5 service members and contractors who were injured in Kuwait, they were injured by falling debris, not from the drones and the missiles, but from the debris. Yeah, no one is buying these lies. And I think we're all sick and tired of it. And we all know that Donald Trump is cognitively and physically deteriorating and rotting before our eyes. And we all know, at least form the opinion, the way I form my opinion, that he is in hiding right now because he's probably struggling to walk and talk right now. And the situation is getting far more grave. The IRGC statement says, look, we're never going to surrender. We're going to stand up to the U.S. There's nothing you can do to stop, to extract from us that which you couldn't do in the battlefield in negotiations. More from the Trump regime as Donald Trump has gone missing. The White House quietly, although this is why we're reporting on it, and Bloomberg notes, the White House says it will reduce tariffs on agriculture equipment such as combines and harvesters in order to reduce the costs for U.S. farmers and manufacturers. As we said on the MeidasTouch account, that's odd because Trump in the White House said that tariffs don't increase costs. And so harvesters, forklifts, and others, now they're getting tariff relief from the tariffs that Donald Trump imposed. And our farmers are really struggling. The costs of fertilizer are through the roof. No one can afford fertilizers. That's why they're relying more on cow dung. I mean, our farmers are really struggling and may need another bailout soon. And this is why, as I've always said, we need transparency more than ever. Transparency, what is going on in this country? And we know that the Trump regime continues to cover up child sex trafficking rings. We know they're covering up everything is a damn cover-up. And take a look at the latest. So the U.S. Department of Defense announced in the past 24 hours that they would be converting the entire Pentagon press office, a workspace where journalists have long been able to seek information from defense and military officials, into a classified SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. So you know how the members of the press sued to get access to the Department of Defense, to get access to the Pentagon, the way they did before. So now the way the Pentagon is trying to get around the fact that they lost the order from the federal judge saying you got to be transparent about what's going on in the war. You got to be transparent. Of course, if things are classified, then the media can be excluded from classified information, but you got to be transparent. This is a public building and you got to hold press briefings, and you can't force out the news from being there. So what does the Trump regime do? They label the entire press room as a SCIF so that you're banned from it because now it's all classified material. That's the same tactic that they're doing regarding other information that should be public when it comes to Congress. So a lot of times you'll hear senators and members of Congress say, well, we can't talk about it because it's being deemed classified information. So the Trump regime deems information that should be public classified and then says, ooh, senators, if you talk about it, we're going to prosecute you because you're now leaking classified information. You see what they're doing right there? And then the Trump regime leaks out the most ridiculous things to the press. So, for example, one of the things that leaked recently is, according to Sean Naylor with the High Side, and this is what they're claiming, this is what I think sources within the Pentagon are saying, that the pilot of the Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle that was shot down by a surface-to-air missile on April 3rd over Iran was the same pilot of one of the 3 F-15Es downed by a Kuwaiti F-A-18 Hornet in a friendly fire incident in early March. It was the same pilot. Folks, I've given you my serious doubts about the official narrative regarding the F-15E pilots. And as I've stated, either the F-15E pilots were actually shot down, but then it was used as a pretext for a broader operation into Iran's nuclear facilities. Because why else would you send hundreds, if not thousands, of special forces into Iran? Why would you send all of those Stratotankers and all of those massive planes into the area to rescue 2 people, right? Wouldn't you want to be as covert and quiet as possible to extract people? I believed it was a failed mission into the Iran nuclear facility that was right there. But, and I said whether the whole story was cover for that or whether it evolved into that and the CIA used the shooting down to then run an additional mission. I don't know, but I don't believe the official narrative personally. But this is a regime that covers up everything. And I mean, look, you have former people from Trump administration 1 calling him out. I mean, you have John Bolton saying the following, play this clip.
And somebody says, I don't care 3 times. Maybe it means they really do care. They're just trying to show how little it's bothering them. Look, if Trump weren't worried, he wouldn't have called Netanyahu to try and get a ceasefire in Lebanon. I don't believe he talked to anybody in Hezbollah. If you read his tweet, it doesn't really say that. It would be quite amazing for an American president to talk to a group that's been on our list of foreign terrorist organizations for about 40 years.
I mean, Bolton's therefore Trump's former national security advisor. Here's what he said as well. Let's play it.
I think the regime in Iran believes it can outlast Trump, that it has more patience than he does because he's so desperate to get the price of oil down. And I think that's why they've now made sure Lebanon is part of the mix. That's just one.
And then it's refreshing to me to see a leader of another country like Canada, who's out there being transparent and talking to the people every day. So here's what Prime Minister Carney just said earlier today. Let's play it.
I want to speak to that reality and how we as Canadians can restore the full promise of Canadian citizenship to all. Because Canada was not founded on a single creed, race, language, or faith. Instead, we've held our differences in common, beginning after a long period of struggle and oppression.
And more from Prime Minister Carney. Let's play it.
Citoyen canadien éclair. That pact for immigration to Canada is clear. We welcome the peoples of the world in all their diversity, in all that splendor. We don't welcome the world's hatreds. When you come to Canada, you bring your faith, your tradition, your language, your story. You leave behind your animosities.
There you have it, folks. We'll keep you posted every step of the way. There is currently a hearing taking place with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. I'm going to be covering that shortly. Hit subscribe, help us get to 7 million subscribers. And so thanks for watching, everybody.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.